Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Favorite Album of the Year. Today we have arrived at 1993. It's funny, I just sat down, started recording the video, and realized that the shirt I was wearing was going to give my pick away. I was like, no, you can't do that. Can't do that. Stop. Change shirts. Start all over again. So anyway, back to 1993. This was probably a tougher year for me than the couple of years that came before it in the 90s. I think some really, really strong classic rock and metal and extreme metal stuff coming out. Some cool prog stuff, too, that came out in 1993. I had a long list of ones that I was considering, had to start kind of weeding things through. I came up with, I think, a pretty strong favorite here, as well as a killer runner-up. And I'm going to make mention of a couple others, too, because I want to. So my top pick, and hope everybody's doing good out there on this Monday. If you're someone watching here from the States, happy Memorial Day, long weekend. If you're outside the States, we have a 3-day weekend right now, so back to work tomorrow on Tuesday. But today everybody's kind of chilling out at home here in the States, enjoying what hopefully is nice weather by you, and have as much fun as you can during this whole lockdown pandemic thing. I know everybody's trying to make the best of it. So anyway, back to 93. My favorite album is an album by a band that, I love a lot and have loved a lot, but I was kind of frustrated by a lot of their kind of 80s output, the latter half of the 80s output. And I think this album, for me, was kind of like a return to a form that I really, really enjoyed. And I really enjoyed this album more than probably like the 4 that came before it. And it really got me back into the band big time. And I still can listen to this album to this day and really enjoy it. I think it's got some really great songs on it. I like the production on it. It's definitely a harder rocking album than some of the ones that came before it. Came out in October 19th, 1993, produced by Peter Collins. I'm talking about, that's right, Counterparts by Rush. Dig it. I really enjoyed the hell out of this, and like I said, and I have grown to really appreciate this album over the years. It's definitely, if not my favorite, in my top 2 of albums released post 1990. Dig this album a lot. Animate, great song. I remember hearing that on the radio and thinking, yeah, Rush is back, right? Stick It Out, another really heavy song on this album. Cut to the Chase, catchy, proggy, right? Nobody's Hero, great melody on that. Nice kind of memorable track. All sorts of other stuff between Sun and Moon. What else we got? Alien Shores, another killer song. Speed of Love, Double Agent, Leave That Thing Alone, Cold Fire, and of course Everyday Glory. Just I think top to bottom a really, really strong album. Again, in a decade, the 90s, that's like, saw a lot of like the legacy bands having to kind of, fumble a little bit with their sound, figure out how to fit into this new decade with all this new music coming out and new styles that are popular and all that sort of thing. I think they did a great job with this one. This one sold really well for them. And I think it's looked at, now going back, now that Rush as a band is, retired and no more, you look back on their catalog, I think this one kind of sits pretty nicely in their catalog, especially from the latter period stuff. As far as my runner-up, man, I had a hard time choosing here. So I went with an album by a band that I love quite a bit, and I think this is definitely one of their greatest achievements. This band started off as a traditional Florida death metal band. You could even call them like a gore death metal or whatever, because a lot of their lyrics had to do with horror and just pretty terrific stuff. And I think they really morphed into a very technically precise, pulverizing band who had a lot of progressive elements to their music. I'm talking about Death. Individual Thought Patterns is my runner-up. I kind of struggled here because I had a couple of extreme metal bands that were jockeying for the runner-up position, including Morbid Angel's Covenant, which I dig quite a bit. But the one that was really kind of fighting with this one for me was Focus by Cynic. And I almost went that way. But in the end, as kind of revolutionary and influential as that Cynic album is and was, I had to go back to which one do I listen to more, which one do I, still reach for more, and that's definitely this one. Okay, but some other contenders here. The Coverdale Page album, dig that a lot. The Last Rebel by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Edge of Thorns by Savatage. Anthrax, Sounds of White Noise. Deep Purple's The Battle Rages On. Cathedrals, Ethereal Mirror. Undertow by Tool, Merciful Fate. In the Shadows. All right, some really good stuff this year. But another one I did want to mention, and the reason why I could have put this as my runner-up because I just love it. It is kind of like a compilation, and I felt kind of weird about picking a compilation, even though I could have. It's part of the rules, right? Compilations, live albums, part of the rules. But I did want to throw out there Jethro Tull's Nightcap, which is absolutely terrific. I mean, if and I just had this kind of conversation with Martin Popoff on a show we recorded this morning, that Jethro Tull has always been one of those bands that had so much extra stuff in the vaults, so much unreleased extra stuff in the vaults, that if you've been a fan of Tull all these years, you always know that Ian Anderson is going to unearth something else, another song or two or three or more from the vaults that they never used on an album, that they recorded during album sessions, and the quality would be just as good as anything that came out on the regular album. That's what this Nightcap album is for me. I mean, I remember when I first got this, I was like, holy crap. So you got the Chateau Disaster tapes, right, which is basically the original Passion Play album. And it's just completely different, and it rules. It's so proggy and heavy. It's just it's amazing stuff to think that they took all of these recordings, and basically threw them in the trash and said, "No, we're going to go and restart this album." And granted, I love the Passion Play; it's amazing, but I love the Chateau Disaster tapes just as much, if not more. Right? And then you got a second disc which has all sorts of unreleased and rare tracks from throughout their career, from the 70s, 80s, and the early part of the 90s. And it's just, so here you got a 2-disc set with all this previously unreleased stuff, and it's all really good. So I had to talk about it and show it, because if you're a casual Tull fan, or even if you are a bigger Tull fan and you don't have that, you need it, because it's just absolutely incredible. So there you have it. So in the comments below, list your favorite from 1993, or your top 5, your top 10, whatever you'd like to do. But again, just to reiterate, Counterparts by Rush gets my pick here. Coming in, Death, Individual Thought Patterns as my runner-up, and my kind of honorable mention, Jethro Tull, Nightcap. So there you have it. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube. It's coming right up. We actually taped it early this morning. It's going to be posting after this. Martin Popoff, the great author from up in Canada, also star of Banger TV, as well as a founding member and editor, writer of Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles, and also a pretty damn good author who's got a ton of books. He's got a brand new book on Rush that just came out that we're going to sit and talk about the book and talk about Rush in general and a couple other things, so you don't want to miss that. It's a really fun half-hour conversation that I think you guys will dig, so stay tuned for that. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on the mighty YouTube all the damn time. I guess I can put my Rush shirt back on now that we're done with the episode, right? All right, guys, have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.